Alright, what's going on everyone? Welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time here, then welcome in. And in this video, we're going to be talking about HEX shares. Not only that, I'll include a staking tutorial at the end of the video. So this will be a long one, in depth. We also have some new charts on LookIntoHex.com. So I'm going to get into all of that. But yeah, without further ado, welcome in. Subscribe, leave a thumbs up, all that good stuff. We're going to get right into this. So before, right, we had our pulse chain sacrifice as well as our PLS pairs tabs, right? Our charts where we could monitor these certain metrics over the 19-day period from, I believe, July 13th, 2021 to August 2nd, 2021. And now the sacrifice phase is over. Definitely don't send any more money to that address. Now we simply wait for things like the testnet to be tested before we see mainnet go live. My speculation would be maybe 1 to 2 months on that end, but these charts will now no longer be available. All right, so if you reload LookIntoHex.com, now we have some new charts. So I shifted a few things around, but we have 2 new charts. More specifically, our shares. So we're going to get into shares obviously in this video, and you can follow along with the charts now because this is live. So you just go to LookIntoHex.com/shares, or just LookIntoHex.com and click the shares button, and we will take a look at that together right now. So I'll give you a general overview of what shares are. And again, this is more in depth, not like the previous video where we attempted it, but it felt a little rushed. So I go in depth here into the fact that staking is one of the primary value propositions of HEX in the first place, right? It's earning yield in HEX terms over time, right? The contract can guarantee more HEX because it invented HEX, right? So the way staking works is when you stake, you effectively burn your coins so they no longer count in circulating supply, and you are allocated a value known as the number of shares you get. Now, this number of shares you get depends on a couple things. It depends on the current share rate, right? This global variable that only goes up with time, because this is measured in shares per HEX. I'll explain this in a bit, as well as your stake length, right? So the number of shares you get depends on the share rate as well as how long you're staking. It also depends on how big you're staking. So I should actually include that in here. So that'll definitely be updated by the time you're watching this video. But probably the reason I forgot is it's for, I mean, not an excuse, but it's for a good reason, right? Because when you stake longer, you can gain up to 3 times the shares. Whereas when you stake bigger, I think you can only gain up to like 10% more shares. I believe it's something like that. Correct me if I'm wrong, if it's not 10%, but I'm pretty sure it's 10%. So the number of shares you get depends on these 3 things. Now, the number of HEX it takes to get a share will only stay the same or increase. And this is guaranteed by the contract because, again, it invented HEX and shares. So this value started at, specifically the hearts per share value started at 1, and now it's at about 1.84. So it's increased by a factor of 1.84x, the number of HEX you need to get a single share, given a fixed amount of time. I hope that makes sense. But the reason it's set up this way, the reason it's this complicated is because this share system allows the system itself to timestamp you and your stakes in a way that dilutes future people enough to always incentivize staking sooner rather than later. So that number I just explained that went from 1 to 1.84, you can also see it as it went from 10,000 HEX per T-share to 18,400 HEX per T-share. It's the same scale, right? It increased by 84%. And this always incentivizes people to stake sooner rather than later, assuming they're denominating their wealth in HEX terms, right? Because if they're denominating their wealth in USD terms, then you obviously have to include the volatility of the HEX price versus the US dollar, right? So therein lies the game theory, but therein also lies the incentive to stake sooner rather than later. So pretty much when you go to LookIntoHex.com and tap shares or /shares, you see a few charts, right? I think these are the important charts. Some of these you might be familiar with. I know Wills Only is a huge proponent of these. and I will go ahead and get into them, as well as there's a new one that I don't think anyone has really talked about. I touched on it in the previous attempt, but we'll touch on it in here as well. So first of all, we have our daily payout per T-share. Now, I do have to shout out hexdailystats.com because that's where I'll be updating my my information here for this chart. And at the end of the day, if that goes down, for example, I can always go into go.hex.com and get the same data from there. So there's really no worries in terms of the data source there. It's diversified enough, I think, to where I don't have to worry about that. But I decided to plot not only the payout per T-share as it changed from the beginning to where we are now, but also the 30-day moving average of this value. And this is arbitrary, right? I could have chosen a 20-day moving average, 50-day, 100-day, 200-day. But I find that, you know, 30-day, it's a fair moving average because it tells you for the past month roughly how much, you know, the average payout per T-share has changed. So you can see that we kind of started off pretty low, went through hyperinflation. Obviously, payout per T-share dipped heavily when we had large staking percentage before big payday, and then it came right back up to normal and seemed to stabilize around the, you know, on average looking like 5.8. We kind of had a recent increase of the average, probably because of these spikes, which is kind of cool. But you can see that the actual absolute value is kind of stabilized back, so I wouldn't be surprised to see this average start curving back down, assuming no more spikes. But these spikes, which are usually emergency end stakes, right, big penalties that are paid to the overall system and get distributed to stakers like you and I, you and me, I think is the grammatically correct way of saying that. Then you get these spikes, and that's why you don't see just a perfectly smooth curve like this MA. The MA attempts to be the kind of default smooth curve, whereas obviously the yellow you'll see these spikes depending on large unstakes or large stake starts. I think that's the way the function is ordered in the contract. It's stake start, I believe. Anyways, if we scroll down, we see the total number of T-shares in the system. And the reason this is important is because it determines your overall APY. So just the same way in Bitcoin, you have miners competing for hash rate. In HEX, you have stakers competing for shares, right? And in the same way that if you only have one guy with all of the hash rate, he gets all of the inflation in Bitcoin. Same thing, if you get one guy staking, or one guy basically stakes all the coins, he's the only guy staking in the system, then he gets all of the inflation of HEX. So they're pretty similar, right? HEX is basically Bitcoin with a proof of work change, if you want to look at it that way. I find that's a good way of framing it to people who like Bitcoin, for example. So that's what T-shares basically imply. So total number of T-shares in the system could, in a way, be analogous to your hash rate, right? And so we saw this increase from the beginning in a pretty much, this is a log scale, right? Keep that in mind. This is a log scale as well. So yeah, we saw T-share increase, T-shares, the total number of T-shares increase. And obviously we saw our spike here during big payday when, again, when you stake, you create T-shares in the system and you're burning your HEX. And so we saw a spike of shares where basically all of the system was staked because why not receive extra coins? That final piece, that final big piece of inflation that was given out basically on big payday, and that was the final kind of the way to, you know, going out with a bang, right? Hyperinflation phase, finishing off with a bang. Big payday, boom, paid out dramatically more to longer stakers, and then tapers off sort of on a gradient to shorter stakers. So people staked for this day got, I think, 30-40% on their coins. And that's why you see the spike here. And it'll make sense when we scroll down here because this chart, I love this chart. I'm plotting here your staking participation and your average APY. And you can see how they're basically reflections of each other mirrored about the, about the x-axis, where there's mirrors of each other. The reason is because the system is designed that way. This here set of charts visually describes the math of the code, which is that these are inverses of each other. It says that the more people that are staking, right, it's basically more people you have to distribute your inflation to, so each individual will get less, right? If it's a fixed number of inflation, right? It's a maximum of, well, it is a 3.69% inflation on the allocated supply, which is total plus staked, and that gets paid out. So that's a fixed amount. It's going to grow with time, and deterministic, right? It's a deterministic amount. It's going to grow with time. What's not deterministic is this, the amount of people who are staking and how that affects your APY. And so your average APY depends on your staking percentage. And that event I was describing on Big Payday can also be seen here, right? Our staking percentage was declining 13% down to 12%, 11, 10, and then pre-Big Payday, we saw a huge spike up to 90+%, where the majority of this entire system was staked to receive that inflation, right? For just being staked for a single day. And so that was a significant event. You saw not only staking percentage shoot through the roof, but because APY is inversely proportional, I just described why, because it's sort of the self-balancing battle for shares, similar to hash rate. Then what you see is your APY getting nice and juicy down here, right? When staking percentage goes down, the yellow curve going down to below 10%, you saw APY go up to 40%, approximately, right? 40.97%, but then the inverse happened on Big Payday. When staking percentage shot through the roof, APY for the day went to single-digit percentages before coming back up to normal, and it's been stable for almost a year at about 38% APY, which an APY number on any given day really only makes sense to annualize it and kind of extrapolate it out if it lasts for a year or longer. So I do like to see this. This roughly 38% APY. Now, here's the final chart on this page. I like it a lot, and it's your total time value of HEX. Now, the reason I like this is because I've seen very few people mention it, right? I think Bree on Twitter mentions this one a lot, the shares market cap, right? And it's such a cool metric. So you have your total number of shares in the system, right? You can see it over here, which is approximately about 11 million or so, right? It's been roughly 11 million or so for a while now, pretty much ever since Big Payday, roughly 11 million T-shares in the system, give or take. And given that there's a global share rate, right? How many HEX per T-share? And there's also a USD price of HEX. You can multiply all those to get a shares market cap, which basically tells you, how much value is pretty much exported in the future and chilling in the future. So I think that's really cool because not only do you have your current HEX market cap, which is your circulating HEX times HEX price, but you also have your shares market cap, which is your, circulating shares times share price. So you have both of these, which in my opinion combine to give you a total time value of HEX, which most of that, currently about 74%, exists in the now, right? Some of that value, and 26% of that value exists in the future. And this will change with time. So this pie chart will update every single day. So that's pretty cool. It'd be cool to actually see a graph of this percentage change with time too. Yeah, that would be really, really cool. I'm doing my best to get the historical data of things like share rate and all of the variables that I'm pretty much using to make these charts, right? So expect some, I shouldn't say expect cool things, but given that I figure certain things out, like here's one of them that you guys might be able to help with, is the HEX subgraph. I'm trying to query that to be able to basically loop back in time and look at the daily share rate change. And that one's tricky because it changes every time someone ends a stake as kind of the most profitable in the system seen to date. And so that changes, every certain number of blocks, which isn't a clean like daily update. So you'd probably have to do some advanced looping script there that I'm not at the moment familiar with how to kind of get started on that. So if you guys can help, you guys have been super helpful in the past, like getting the website up and a bunch of other things, getting the domain, shout out to Wasabi, and you guys have been super helpful. So I do appreciate that. But if you know how to do things like that, just point me in the right direction, right? I'd really appreciate that. But I like this chart a lot. The total time value of HEX. Again, you have your current value that exists in the now in the circulating HEX times HEX price, as well as future value that exists in the future as circulating shares times share price, which is cool because it's definitely future. It's a hard lock because shares aren't redeemable for dollars, right? Shares are only redeemable for HEX, and you know how much HEX they'll be redeemable for, right? Yeah, I'm going into some rabbit holes, aren't I? But yeah, shares aren't redeemable necessarily unless you try to do something like trade shares, which I think already exists, but I don't know how many people are actually using that. But yeah, these are the charts. You can follow them for yourself, and we'll do my best to kind of not only keep these, as accurate as possible and kind of as aesthetic as possible, but given the right tools, you might see some cooler things. So definitely thought that was a cool thing. Now, just before we jump into the actual staking, I want to get into max ROI. All right. So this is a new chart, and it's pretty simple. I don't want to go through the overview. Just want to go through this one really quick. We've talked about it. It's basically your running maximum ROI before staking of how much price is pretty much gone. It's your all-time high divided by all-time low on any given day. And again, the 10,000x design is up here at 10,000x, and we're currently sitting at, so far, our maximum ROI we've seen is 3,867x. So yeah, multiply that by 100% if you want to know the gains in terms of percentage. And then subtract 100%, because that's the initial. So that's that. This chart actually only goes up too, because it's always checking the all-time high historically divided by the historical all-time low. So if you don't see a new all-time high or all-time low on any given day, then this will just stay flat, right? No new all-time high, this will just stay flat. So I think it's pretty cool to be able to kind of monitor this in real time for yourself. So now we'll get into the staking tutorial. It's pretty simple. All you have to do is go to metamask.io and you'll get yourself a MetaMask wallet. When you create your wallet, you'll be given a secret phrase known as your seed words. Don't give those away to anyone. That's basically your access code to your money. If anyone else has that, they can spend your money, right? These words are basically your ability to spend that money. And giving that to someone else is literally just giving someone else your wallet, right? And they can do whatever they want with it. So don't fall for any of that kind of misleading stuff out there. With that disclaimer, create your metamask.io wallet. And once you have found your on-ramp into crypto via an exchange, there are a few that I'm willing to actually name. I guess some of those are Coinbase, Bitstamp, or Gemini. Those are fine. I mean, they're counterparty risk, right? They're centralized exchanges at the end of the day, but you have to get into crypto somehow if you're trying to get into crypto. And so those would be the places where you could, turn your US dollars into something like Ethereum or USDC. Once that's the case and you're able to send that to your MetaMask and it's funded, right? Then you can go into something like oneinch.io and get yourself some HEX, right? Now, if you're blessed like me with an awesome community who donates you HEX, then you can just stake that, right? So the donation address is always at the bottom of LookIntoHex.com. You guys are really awesome and have donated in the past, and we're currently sitting on 11,000 HEX, which is pretty cool from you guys. So we're gonna go ahead and stake some of that, okay? So you go to go.hex.com, right? That's go.hex.com. There's a go, right? A prefix, a pre-domain, or whatever you call it. I forget what those things are called. Anyways, you go to go.hex.com and you input basically how much you want to stake here in your amount. Like I said, we have 11,000 HEX available. So let's go ahead and actually just stake all of that, right? Should I include the decimals? Sure, why not? And let's say we wanted to stake this. I hope I only have like $14 of Ether in here. So if this doesn't work out, just consider it the tutorial, right? So 11,000 HEX, say you want to stake for, 30 days, say a month. You get this thing here that says, increase your stake length for bonus shares. Okay, so it's cool because it's letting you know, hey, you're only getting 0.607 shares, or T shares, right? Terra shares, for your amount of hex that you're wanting to stake. 0.6, so not even 1. And then you look up and you're like, oh, that makes sense because your share rate, they should say rate, honestly. I don't like that it says price. Yeah, I would vote for this to say rate if I could, if I had any say at all. Anyways, because it's a rate, right? Hex per T-share. So you see that it currently costs, right, 18,408 hex for a single T-share. I don't have that many hex in my wallet right now. But what if I still want one T-share? Can I get one? You can get one, right? You can get extra shares, bonus shares they call them here, by increasing the number of days. So herein lies that fundamental aspect of HEX, which is it monetizes time. Because this is a hard lock built in with penalties, right? It's effectively a hard lock, and so there's no other way to get more shares than literally staking longer. It's literally just waiting. So what do? Let's say we want an entire share. Well, what if we stake a year, right? Oh, okay, it increased a little bit, but not too much. And then you ask yourself, like, hold on. I remember Richard saying it was 20% extra shares every extra year you lock up. So if, let's say, for a single day, I'm only getting about 0.6 shares, I would pretty much need, 2/3 more, right? Because 0.4 more or less, to add to 0.6, right? And 0.4 relative to 0.6 is 2/3. So I need kind of 67% more bonus shares. So if 20% extra every year, and I need about 67, then I'd want to stake for 3.35 years or something. That's like 1,000. How many days is that? Let me pull out a calculator real quick. 3.35 years times 365. About 1,222 days. So let's see if that's right. Okay, 1222. You're looking like you're almost at a share. So my math was almost right. Then you can just manually increase. There you go. I was off by about 4 days. So you can get more shares, right? And it's pretty cool because 11,000 hex right now is worth like what, $1,300, about $1,300. So how much does a share technically cost, right? Well, a share technically costs 1.84 times 12 cents, right? 18,400. So a share basically costs $2,200, but I can get one share with only $1,300 if I'm willing to stake for 3 years, right? So I can, yeah, I'm basically getting something that's worth more than what I'm giving, even though it's not redeemable for dollars until, right, the time is due, then it's redeemable for hex, and that hex could be worth who knows what in dollars, because therein lies the speculation. But you'll be getting hex back at the rate you want it, right? Because if you want a T-share, then a T-share will print you right now approximately, and that's what this is for, right? If you go to your, I need to fix this too. These should say different things. No, definitely. Yeah, if you go to your shares tab, then that's what this is for, right? Approximately, you're getting 6 shares, or not shares, I'm sorry, you're getting about 6 hex per day, per T-share. So if I were to acquire this T-share via staking, then I would be looking at approximately, assuming that chart stays flat, which I can mostly assure you it won't, right? Assuming this just stayed flat basically for the next 3 years. I'd imagine you see some kind of curvature to it, but let's just say, for the sake of this, assuming it were flat, right, 6 hex per day for 1,227 days, I'd basically be getting an extra 7,362 hex or so. So cool, right? Cool. Whatever that is, 732 over, or 7,000 over 11,000, whatever that is, 60 or 70% interest on your HEX, right? And that is on top of whatever HEX has gained across years. So if you expect HEX to not dump, more than would offset your gains in terms of HEX in years, right? And generally speaking, crypto can do a lot of X's in years, then you see why the incentive stake is there. So let's go ahead and show you guys that if you wanted to stake it, let's go ahead and, I want to stake it for a short amount of time just so that maybe in a future video I can like unstake it for you guys and show you. And we should probably do a short stake too, because Ethereum is pretty expensive in terms of gas fees. So let's do like a 30-day stake of these 11,000 HEX just so that you can, so we can update you and unstake it. So 11,000 HEX, 30 days, awesome. You hit stake and a MetaMask transaction pops up, which asks you to confirm. And you have your gas fee. I'm going to be real, guys. There's like, again, I told you there's like $14 of Ether in here. I don't want to send Ether to this. I just don't. So yeah, I'm not actually going to stake it, but I want to show you guys what it looks like. What you would do is you would basically choose fast, right? I like to choose fast, but it's $10 right now, which is ridiculous. I remember when it was like, bro, I remember it was like a penny, literally a penny. And if it was 2 or 3 pennies, I was like, I was feeling funny. This is not good, man. Right? Pulse chain cannot come soon enough, right? I'm super excited to not have to endure this this theft right here. So you would choose a speed, right? Slow, average, or fast. This will change in ETH terms depending on the congestion of the network, and this dollar value will change in terms of the Ether value versus the dollar. So you choose whatever speed you want, you hit save, and then you would go ahead and hit confirm. Now, after that, you'd basically be done. So I've basically taken you through the tutorial of what it looks like, right? I don't actually have to tap confirm, just because, like I said, this will probably not be able to be unstaked in 30 days if I don't add Ether to this wallet. Don't want to do that. Just don't. Right? I don't want to give miners money. I just don't. They don't deserve it, in my opinion. Not at these levels, right? Am I willing to pay a penny, 2 pennies, even 30, 40 pennies, maybe for like a little transaction, a mundane transaction? But when it starts getting into the dollars, like, bro, it didn't used to be like this. I remember the good days, and right, hopefully Pulse Chain will be a solution. Because, I mean, I understand that a lot of people have made a lot of money with HEX, and don't care about paying the gas fees, and I totally empathize with that. I feel the same way. It's in terms of onboarding new people, where it's like, well, they haven't experienced the amount of gains yet. To them, right, $10, $20, $30 might be a lot of money. Just in terms of just be empathetic to people's situation, right? It's not cool. But yeah, I wanted to take you through this staking tutorial. You would hit confirm if you wanted to follow through. Since I'm not following through, I'm hitting reject. And that was pretty much it. This video is pretty long. I don't know if I want to get into some more stuff. Let's get into some more stuff. So I did a poll, right? We have a poll here. Let me reload this, make sure. Is the poll over? Oh yeah, awesome. Yeah, we got the final results in. So I'm asking y'all, which crypto are you the most bullish on? I asked you on Twitter, and nice. Looks like PLS won by a few percentages. This is pretty close. 36, 31, and 33%. PLS, HEX, and PX respectively. Yeah, man. I feel this. So I also took this poll on YouTube. So let's reload this. This poll received a total of almost 1,200 votes. Awesome. Thank you guys for engaging, by the way. That's a lot of engagement. I really do appreciate that. It helps the channel too, and it's insightful, right? We get to talk about it here on the channel. So PLS, wow, you guys are on YouTube are way more bullish on PLS. Interesting. That's interesting. I don't know. I wouldn't expect that large of a discrepancy between the Twitter and the YouTube polls. Is it because I make like super bullish Pulse Chain videos on YouTube? Not everyone on my Twitter follows my YouTube. Interesting. So I went ahead and actually did something. I did a pie chart, of course, right? Got to get quantitative with the polls too. Can you guys see that? Let's do 175%. Nice and big. There you go. There we go. All right. So I'm asking you guys which you are the most bullish on, and basically I'm gonna take. I was updating this earlier. Let's update it real time with you guys here. What I did here is we looked at the total number of votes, 878 for Twitter. Right. The percentages for Twitter, 35.9. Bear with me here. We're gonna update our percentages, 31.2. And the other one was the same. Perfect. And you basically get your number that voted on Twitter, right, from these percentages out of total number. And I'm basically getting an overall YouTube and Twitter kind of hybrid pie chart here. So let's update the YouTube side. 1184 up here. And then we're updating our percentages because they give you percentages. I don't know why YouTube and Twitter don't give you actual numbers. Maybe you can just extrapolate it for yourself. 52, 24, 23. All right. 52, 24, 23. Really? It only has up to 99%. They round, don't they? You know what? Let's just say 0.3 so that we're assuming they're rounding equally, just so that we get the numbers like roughly closer. So, okay, overall, Pulse is the clear winner. That's pretty interesting. Pulse is the clear winner of all the total votes across YouTube and Twitter, and that's with a net 45.3% votes. We have PHEX winning by 0.1%. Dang, right? PX got 27.4%, HEX got 27.3%. That's pretty close. What I find kind of interesting is if you add the HEX and PHEX side, it's more combined than the Pulse side. That's pretty interesting because everyone who holds HEX, liquid or staked, is getting it copied over as PHEX. So pretty interesting, right? If you're bullish on a single coin, I guess PLS, but if you're most bullish on just kind of the reality, the fact that everyone in HEX is getting their coins copied as PX, and you could argue that being in both of these, people are more bullish on them as, you know, as a sum, as a combination, than they are PLS. I don't know, pretty cool. Yeah, just wanted to share that with you guys because you obviously engaged, so I want to give you something back in terms of like what your input can do, right? We can get some insight from it. So I don't know. I have no clue what's going to happen, but it's cool to see what you guys think is going to happen. I definitely appreciate you watching this video. This is one of the longest videos we've made. It's not a live stream. So yeah, there's definitely a lot to say. We reorganized a little bit. So you kind of get a different vantage point. Check out the lights. You can check out the guitar back there. Check out the guitar. Yeah. But yeah, appreciate you watching. Subscribe if you're new. Share this if you found value in it and think anyone you know might share value or might find value in it too. Comment down below what your thoughts are on literally any of the things we talked about in the last 33 minutes. Leave a like, all that good stuff, and I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.